Excuse me. We have a no yelling policy at these meetings.
Excuse me. Am I talking to you, Pinhead? Am I?
Hold on to something. It's time for
Got a little range.
And now they want me to bottle it up. It makes me so mad.
What's Making Nick Mad.
This bread has nuts in it.
That's right, folks. What's making Nick Mad is back here on Footy First. Nick McVicker, Nico Giantsopoulos. And yeah, as the Sting says, I'm mad. I'm not happy about something. And I'm going to vent to you and use this as a therapy session to make myself feel better. Sucks for you guys to have to listen to me, but we're here, so we're going to move on with it. And
am I the therapist in this?
You're the devil's advocate every time we do this, so we'll see if you're going to help me or make me more angry. But something that's been making me really mad over the last few weeks, and it goes back to the NWSL Draft, and more recently when I've been watching the international friendly window open for the women's side. There is not a whole lot of Canadian representation currently in the soccer market. And what I mean by that is right now we're seeing the women's American team playing friendly matches. They've played 2 matches against New Zealand over the last week. Prior to that, they had another friendly match a couple weeks in December. They had 12 friendly matches from the beginning of last year to now. 12. In that time frame, Canada had 9. And we're supposed to be a top club a top team in the women's level. We have a She Believes Cup coming up in February. And our first game is against the Americans. Our last friendly was held in November as a team. A lot of these players haven't been playing because a lot of them do play in the NWSL, right? Now, some of them do play in Europe. They're playing. I understand that. I'm not oblivious to that. But a lot of players from our Canadian national team have not been playing. And yet, for some reason, there was not a single friendly match held in this international window, and there is not one scheduled prior to the She Believes Cup, where we play the Americans in the first game.
You don't think it's possible that they'll have a last-minute addition or friendly game
It's very,
added?
very rare. There's 3 weeks till the She Believes Cup starts. Maybe 4. 3.5. Right? I don't think it happens like that. Like the Canadian men's team, we only had a last-minute addition because another game had to be canceled. Mm-hmm. Right? Last-minute games don't normally happen for international because of all the logistics about moving teams here, there, and everywhere. It doesn't normally happen. So I truly believe we are going into this She Believes Cup, and our first match as a team in 2023 will happen against the Americans in the She Believes Cup. And that's a problem to me. And it goes back to the NWSL Draft, where there was 1 Canadian drafted in the entire NWSL Draft, who, by the way, is actually a dual citizen and an American. 1 Canadian was drafted. There is no international rules in NWSL. Canadians are not internationals. There's no international rules.
And you only say that because sometimes that's what people can say for Canadians in the MLS.
Exactly, because that's when I brought that up to you when we were talking about it just after the draft. You said, well, what about the international rules? And I looked it up because I wasn't 100% sure because, to be fair, I don't really understand the MLS international rules sometimes because they keep changing. There's no international rules for Canadians in the NWSL.
Canadians are considered domestic.
They're domestic. So why is it that with over 60 draft picks, not one out-and-out Canadian was drafted and only 1 dual national was drafted? That's a problem. And sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, where do you think they're getting, these draft picks are all from the NCAA, correct?
All NCAA, which, as we've seen over the last few years, there's a lot of Canadian women playing in the NC2A. We know that.
But is there a lot of top women that are playing in the NCAA?
A lot of our international, national team players and our under 21s and under 18 national team players are playing in the NC2A. We talked about the U21 tournament.
Rose plays for Texas.
Rose, yeah, exactly. Jade just played for Michigan for the last 3 years, right? We have top talent there. Our entire under 21 national team was on schools in the States. Right? We talked about that during the Under-21 World Cup.
But then it becomes a topic are those girls declaring for the draft? And then
Yes. I know for a fact there was 14 players that were Canadians that had declared for the draft.
Okay, that's interesting. And do you know of those 14 players if those girls were part of that U21 Canadian national team?
Two were for sure. I think 3.
So was Rose? Did Rose declare?
I don't think so. She was. I think she's
still. I believe she's a sophomore.
Yeah, I think she's still a year
university.
too young, to be honest, to have declared for that draft.
Can you declare early for the NWSL
I don't
draft?
think so. Yeah, I don't believe so. I can check that. I don't believe so. But I'm having problems understanding why we're not getting these opportunities, why we're not giving our players opportunities with friendly matches prior to a big tournament. Like, why is this not happening? It should be something that is ingrained in the culture to give players opportunities to showcase themselves, to show that we deserve these opportunities at the next level in the case of the NWSL draft, or to show that we're ready to go to play a team like the States in the She Believes Cup. We haven't even shown who's going to be on the roster for the She Believes Cup because we don't have any friendly matches.
So then where does this fall apart for you? Who is to blame? Is it... What do you think? Let me pose a question to you.
Yeah.
What do you think Bev Priestman's decision to not have a camp in this window? Why do you think, educated based on what you know, why do you think she didn't have a camp right now?
To be honest, I have no idea.
You can't
I
even-
would have maybe not having the European players. I understand that because they're in season. I get that, but why are we not doing what the men's team did prior to the World Cup? Remember they went to a camp early with just MLS players, and they had a whole game with just MLS Canadians against, I can't even remember who did they play. I can't remember who they played in that match. But they played a game with just MLS players prior to the World Cup. And
Was
all
it
the
Japan?
Was it Japan? It might have been Japan.
No, it wasn't Japan. It was the game previously to Japan.
Was it Uruguay then?
No, definitely not Uruguay.
Okay, regardless, doesn't really matter. But they did a MLS-only camp for guys who were out of season.
And you know what? I agree. I'm surprised that all the American and NWSL national team players, and even get your top college players,
Yes,
to
that's
come in
what I
at that
mean,
point.
though. It's an
Why didn't
opportunity
they
for
do
those
camp?
players to show for Bev as well, right? Like, you get the NWSL players, get them in, get them training, get them moving the ball again. Like, I know that it's off season and they're doing that themselves, but get them within the team aspect once again prior to the
Again,
She Believes Cup.
Whenever you could just get a national team camp, you could always benefit from that. It's always going to be better than you just doing your off season all on your own.
Exactly. Anytime you can get a camp with, anytime you can just train with more players that you play with for a national team, even if it's like 5, you get so much more than what you would do just by yourself or with like a single trainer. Right?
It's difficult to do in Canada, but I would have loved to see get those NWSL players on a Team Canada, and then if they can't schedule against another nation, do like a prospects, like
Yes.
the top other ex players, and make a
Yes.
team there and battle it out, and just to get a game under your belt, and then you just see what the pool's like.
But that's my point, is that we're not even doing that, right? These are missed opportunities in my mind.
It's easier to just get that done though than to essentially you're asking to pull around 50 women's professional soccer players out of wherever they are,
Right.
bring them into one location and get something going.
And I understand that. And I'm not saying that would have been easy, but you're missing an opportunity, especially just having a camp, like an NWSL camp. You were missing an opportunity for these players to get prepared for a cup. Like, this isn't, I know the She Believes Cup, a lot of people don't really understand what it is, but it's a big tournament in the women's international scene. Like, it is an important tournament. It's a invitation only. You have to be invited to this tournament. And Canada's been invited. And we play the top nation in the world, in the U.S., in the first game, and we're not having a camp to get the NWSL players ready to go.
Pending how those results go in the She Believes Cup, we could circle back to this conversation in the future. And if
Absolutely.
they have a bad performance, we could start posing questions as why during this time wasn't there a camp?
Absolutely. I'm just frustrated because I think we need to give as many opportunities as we can for Canadian players to showcase themselves. And it feels like we're not giving that all the time. Whereas
Do you think it's even on
Americans
both
are.
sides? on the men's side and the women's side?
Well, what did I just say about the MLS? Like, the men's team did that for their MLS players prior to the World Cup to make sure that they were prepared, and they even had a game where it was just MLS players.
It's a World Cup, though.
It's a World Cup. I understand that, but wouldn't you want to give your players who are not in season an extra couple weeks training together? Like, I think it's just a missed opportunity. And even if you don't get a game in, it's a missed opportunity that you have to better showcase your players, because the She Believes Cup is a showcase. We know that.
And that's kind of why I pose a question. Is it Canada Soccer or is it Bev Priestman? Because if it's Canada Soccer, it's like, okay, then you could start getting into the question of equality and how come they're not given the same opportunity as maybe the men did. But
that's my concern.
But if it's Bev's decision.
Right, and there's no way for either of us to know that, right? Like, we can't know that. If it is Bev's decision, I question the decision, but she's done so well for the team, like, it's hard to question her specifically right now. But if this comes back to bite her, then that's a conversation that we can have. Whereas if it's a Canada Soccer decision, and I'm not saying that they needed to schedule a game necessarily just for the NWSL players.
But you need to get a group of players
But you need
in.
a camp. And why is there no camp? That's my biggest concern. And even if you know there's players coming from Europe that will join the camp later before the She Believes Cup, I understand that. But have a camp with the NWSL players. Get them moving. Get them playing. Like, why is this an issue? I don't understand why that was even not brought up at all. It doesn't make sense in my head.
Well, that's the thing. We don't know if it wasn't brought up.
Yeah, but I just don't get why it wasn't put into action. Get them an opportunity, please. That's all I'm looking for. That's all we're looking for. We want to see more Canadian players playing. That's it. And that's what's been making me mad since the NWSL draft, is that we just haven't seen that, and the Americans seem to be doing it in spades every year. Well, year after year, the American women's team is playing an abundance of friendly matches just because.
Their schedule's busy.
They're always busy. They're always playing. And it helps. That's why they're a top nation in the world, right there, because they're always playing.
We'll see. We'll see in the She Believes Cup.
That's all I got.
And we'll see in the summer when the World Cup comes.
That's all I got.